Welcome back to Cousin Sal's Winning Weekend. Let's bring in my pals. They've been surviving and advancing ever since I met them. This year, though, their brackets have more X's than Jennifer Lopez. They're my wizards of wagering, my gurus of gambling, my barons of betting, my overlords of the odds. From the Against All Odds podcast, the D3, Harry, Brother Bry, and Darren the Parlay Kid. What is happening, fellas?
What's going on, Sal?
Yeah, what's up, Sal?
What's going on, buddy?
Well, I just chatted with Kevin Owens. Good dude. I love his gimmick. Cut off, sleeveless t-shirt, shorts. Kind of reminds me of what Harry would look like as a wrestler if he lost 70 pounds and had athletic ability. But we wish him luck against the Viper Randy Orton at WrestleMania in a couple weeks. Harry, what would be your gimmick? What if you were a wrestler? Have you ever
That doesn't sound bad. I'd probably go with a mask. Probably go mask.
Good idea.
Everybody would appreciate that.
Some real flamboyant colors, maybe. You know, I don't know. Maybe some pink and light blue. I don't know. Really throw things off on guys. I don't know.
You'd put like a plastic mask or like a mask like you're kind of
like Rey Mysterio.
Describing the Ultimate Warrior with the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That was good
Not
too.
Painted. Yeah. Actual mask. Mexican wrestling mask.
Right.
Okay, that'd be great.
Nacho Libre, baby.
All right, we'll have to do some more wrestling talk later. Let's get into it though. Saturday night at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, the men's Final Four. We're going to start with an SEC matchup between Florida and Auburn. It's a rematch from back in February 8th. Florida won that on the road 90-81. Let's give our picks and our props. Florida, 2.5-point favorite and 159.5 against Auburn. A little strange that the overall number one seed, Auburn, the toughest team all year, is now getting 2.5 points from the fourth overall number one seed. I know it's close, but still weird. You know what? I think we're almost all on the same page here. Brother Bryce, start us off with your pick here.
Yeah, look, I've gone against Florida for a few rounds here, and they keep surviving, but I'm going to take them now, minus 2.5 in this one. Both teams have played with a little bit of fire so far in the tournament. You know, and Auburn, too, they've gone on a couple of big runs that have won them the last two games, so I don't think that's going to happen against a team like Florida. Clayton has been maybe the best player so far in this tournament, certainly the most clutch. And I think what happens is this game's going to be relatively close for most of it, but I think Florida pulls away late. You know, the Clayton, some of the others, some great free throw shooters they have. So I think they pull away late, maybe win by 5 or 6 here, Sal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I am winning by 6. Walter, he just figures it out eventually, Clayton, right? I'm very impressed with his style of play. He orchestrates a great run, and the opposition kind of has no idea what they got themselves into. By the way, you said Auburn's about runs. Florida really is. They had an 11-0 run in the win over Maryland, the Sweet 16, 10-0 run early against Texas Tech in the Elite Eight, and then, of course, to close out the game, they had a 9 or 10-0 run, I think, against Auburn earlier in the year. They did that 31 times this year, 9 or 10-0 run or more. I don't think Bruce Pearl has an answer for their guard depth, actually. And again, we don't know what we're getting with Janai Broome, honestly. We think he might be 100%, but who knows? I know he came back in that game to close out to get to the Final Four. But Thomas Haugen, he could create problems. Alex Condon also on the inside. I have 83-77. Harry, how do you have it?
Pretty close, Sal. I'm on Florida as well. My bracket has the Gators cutting down the net, so I'm all over Florida. They're 27-11 against the spread this season, 9-3 against the spread on neutral sites this year, 12-0 straight up in those games. Florida's been a little shaky lately, but they've had time to fix things. The Broome injury you mentioned, Sal, for Auburn, is something to keep our eye on as the game moves along. Overall, the guard play, as I've mentioned before, is the key for Florida's head coach, Todd Golden. Clayton, Martin, and Richard all are amazing athletes. And Florida, like you mentioned also, Sal, beat the Tigers in Auburn earlier this year by 9, and the Gators didn't even have Elijah Martin in that game. I've got Golden and his Gators 80, Auburn 73.
All right, you'll take that score, Parlay Kid, because you're going to go under. You'll take mine, too, but only by a half. Mine goes under.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go under 160.5 points here, Sal. So this game is being played in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. 8 out of the last 9 semifinal and final games at this location have gone way under the total of 160 points. You know, with the depth perception issue at these type of stadiums, teams usually come out ice cold in these type of the games, and then they have to fight to get over this total. I just don't see it happening. Auburn D blocks shots at a top 5 rate. They limit opponents' threes, and when the opponents do shoot them, they shoot them at a low percentage. Both teams have had their games go over 160 total in about only 1/3 of their contests this year. because they're both pretty good defensive teams. They can score, but they do play good defense. I think the conditions of this game, where it's being played, will keep this game under 160.5.
All right, I like it. Although, I mean, I used to do this every year. Bri, right? The first half unders with that exact reasoning. They're shooting into the stadium lights and everything's front end. They're not, conditioned with the rims and everything. Although they did play in a stadium last week, right? Wasn't that weird? It was Lucas Oil last week. So I don't know. And I think a couple of those games did go under. All right, let's do a prop here. I'm going to have fun with this. Everybody loves Walter Clayton Jr. I'm going first basket plus 500. It was 650. Somehow people got wind of the fact that I was picking this, and they're all over it. So now it's 5-1. I still like it. It's a fun one. We're giving out biggish plus odds. He made a 3 against Norfolk State to start the game in the tournament. He was his team's first scorer against Maryland in the SEC tournament final against Tennessee. He hit a 3 to kick off the festivities. He's aggressive early. He's great at creating shots. Plus 500. A little high for this. The tip is at what? 6:09 Eastern? 6:10. You'll have already won your bet. You could take your family to Chili's, whatever, and watch the rest of the games. I'm going to take Clayton first basket plus 500. Harry, you also have a Clayton prop.
Yeah, let's go over 20.5 points scored, Sal, at minus 115. Clayton's been spectacular in the tourney with 23 or more points in 3 of the 4 games so far. He also had 22 in both games versus Tennessee and Alabama in the SEC tournament. He seems to like the big games when the pressure is on. He's had at least 3 threes in 7 of his last 8 games, had 30 points versus Texas Tech. He's the guy for the Gators, and he goes for at least 21. Clayton over 20.5, Sal.
All right, Parlay Kid, you have another player prop here?
Yeah, Denver Jones over 15 points at plus 176. Jones came to Auburn. He averaged over 20 points per game at Florida International. Hasn't had to be that type of scorer since he's arrived at Auburn, but he's gone over this total in 2 out of the 4 games of the tourney so far. He shoots free throws at a 90% clip, shoots threes at about 40% clip. He's the 5th leading scorer on this team, so maybe Florida kind of lets him get his and tries to contain the other players. Let's take Jones at a nice price here, 15+ points.
All right, but what if Jones scores 161 points? Then you're totally screwed.
I'll middle it. That'd be okay. I'd live with that.
All right, Parlay Kid, you'll like your brother's pick. He's going under with a player prop.
Yeah, I'm going to take Miles Kelly under 12.5 points. Look, Kelly shot 38% from 3 during the season, but he's really been bad over the last 3 games. He's only averaging 6 points per game over the last 3. 5 for 27 from the field, 3 for 18 from 3. Florida's a better defensive team than they get credit for. And like you were saying earlier, Sal, in these large stadiums, it'll be even harder to shoot from the outside. So I would take Miles Kelly under 12.5 points.
There you go. All right, that's all 4. Now on the other side of the bracket, we're looking at the Dukies minus 4.5 and 135.5 against Houston. Parlay Kid, we're kind of split on this, the 4 of us. You have a fun way of looking at this with Duke.
Yeah, and I can't blame us for being split here. 2 excellent teams, Sal. I'm going to be taking Duke's win margin 1 to 10 points at plus 165. To me, Duke is the most talented team in the country. And I think Duke's D is closer to Houston's D than Houston's O is to Duke's offense.
Wait a minute. Let me write this down.
You got that? You got that?
Confusing. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right, I
So
got it.
you got it. You got it.
Yeah.
So this is to not discount this Houston team. So they're great, and they're going to match this Duke team blow for blow. But Duke's talent will rise to the top to close out this game. So it should play close. I don't really have to worry about them getting over the 4.5. A 1-point win is just as good here for me. Again, 1 to 10 margin plus 165.
All right, I said we're split. Harry, you're taking Houston plus the points.
I'm going to take the points here, Sal. It seems like out of the 4 teams, the Cougars are getting the least credit. Almost feels like a redheaded stepchild as they take on Flag and Duke. Look, they lost 4 games this year. 1 loss, they lost by 5 on a neutral court to Auburn, and they were winning at halftime. And the other 3 losses, they all lost in overtime. Only 195 miles separates Houston and San Antonio, and Houston will be well supported. L.J. Cryer, not great in his last 2 games. He erases that on Saturday. Big game out of him, and Houston shows how solid they are on defense. Look what they just did to Tennessee. Seems just too easy to take Duke here, Sal. This game's a great one. Somebody wins 71-68, but give me the 4.5.
All right, I had 176.7 miles. I'm not even kidding. between Houston and San Antonio. But we could look. It's Google Maps versus Yahoo. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Man, Harry, the bigger problem is we're up both on the same teams in both these games. I have Houston winning it all. I had them beating Duke, so I have to stick with it, even though Duke has looked unbeatable in the 2 weeks since I penciled in the Cougars. But I'm going to play this differently. I'm going Houston over 65.5 points. They're over 65 in 3 of their 4 tournament games, 65 plus in 31 of 35 regular season games. Cryer's their guy. Emmanuel Sharp has been shooting very well, averaging 17 a game over the last 8. And Duke's going to have their hands full defending Houston. Shoots 40% from 3 and is very good at creating offensive opportunities. They're a top 15 team also in the nation in offensive rebounds. 4 players averaging double figures rebound-wise. Kelvin Sampson's team is not going to lay down for the Dukies. 72-68. Houston wins, playing the over 65.5 team points. All right, Bri, I would say break the tie, but you're going to make this a tie. You're taking Duke.
Yeah, I'm taking Duke, but it's funny. Last year and the year before, I took Houston to win it also. Figures this season how well they're playing. But I do like Duke minus 4.5. You know, they have been absolutely dominant for 2 months with Flag on the floor here. Like Darren was saying earlier, they're the most well-rounded team. And look, I think Houston's going to have a tough time scoring. I know you're taking the over here, Sal, but I think Houston's going to have a tough time scoring. Duke has the size to match up against them, and they're going to just have an easier time scoring here. And when you look back to last weekend, I thought Tennessee was just a great matchup for Houston in that game. Not a great offensive team, and Houston just beat them up. So I think right now we're going to see the trends continue. The better the favorites here continue to win these games outright. So I'll take Duke winning 73-62. Sorry, Sal, that's not good for you.
That's okay. I'm sorry, too, because you know who's going to have trouble scoring? Guy named Cooper Flag. I'm going under 18.5 points. By the way, this is jumping between 17.5 and 18.5. If you're going under, try to get it at 18.5. As great as Duke is and as good a scorer Flag is, they don't really rely on him to put up 20, 25, 30. You got Knipple, you got Proctor, Maluach. You got all those guys. He failed to score 19 or more in 10 of his last 12 games, which is surprising. This player prop, I think, is way jacked up because he's the most famous dude playing in the 3 remaining games. I'm going to play it under. I think Boy Wonder ends up with somewhere between 14 and 16 right there in that range against Houston's feisty defense. I like it at 18.5 going under. Parlay Kid, you have an over here.
Yes, Sal, I'm going to be taking Emmanuel Sharp over 12.5 points at minus 122. He's gone over this very easily the last 2 games, and in 7 of his last 9, he has gone over this point total. 45 points in his last 3 games, shooting at over 40% from 3 for the year. I like Sharp here. He's the second leading scorer on this Houston team to get this done.
All right, Bri, Knipple.
Yeah, I'm going to take Con Knipple on Duke under 14.5 points. You know, Knipple's going to likely be a top 10 pick in the draft. And, you know, he was very good against Bama and very good against Arizona. But this, like, you know, even though I have Duke winning this game, Houston is, you know, only giving up 57 points per game so far in the tournament. They can be suffocating at times, and I think that could be the case with some of the guards here. But you have between Knipple, Flag, Proctor, they're not all going to play well in this one. And I think if they're going to stop anybody, Knipple's going to be the guy here. So I'd take the under 14.5 points, though.
Okay, Harry, keeping with the Houston Cougars advancing theme, you like Cryer to score, to have a big game here, right?
Yeah, 20 or more points, you get plus 220, Sal. Cryer's led the Cougars in scoring the past 2 seasons. He scored 30 in the NCAA tournament in past years. He had 30 versus Gonzaga. This year, Cryer's had 20 or more 10 times this season. Duke likes to push it up and down the court. That should give Cryer the ball a bit more and create some more opportunities to score for him. Again, the senior hasn't had a tremendous last 2 tournament games, but Cryer shows up big time in his home state of Texas, Sal, on Saturday, and you get a nice price of plus 220 for 20 points or more.
How